Tariq Skubal had been a professional baseball player for years. He had experienced winning streaks, losing streaks, trades, and triumphs. He thought he had seen everything this sport had to offer. But nothing, absolutely nothing, had prepared him for what happened on his very first night as a Los Angeles Dodger. It wasn't the stadium. It wasn't the lights. It wasn't even the contract. It was a dinner. And the man sitting at the head of the table was Shohei Ohtani. According to multiple sources close to the Dodgers organization, what took place that evening went far beyond a standard team welcome. What Skubal experienced that night fundamentally changed the way he understood what it means to be part of this franchise, and more importantly, what it means to play alongside Shohei Ohtani. To understand the full weight of that evening, you first have to understand what Tariq Skubal was walking into. Joining the Los Angeles Dodgers is not like joining any other team in baseball. This is not a franchise that simply adds players to a roster. The Dodgers are an organization built around identity, culture, and an unspoken standard of excellence that every player must meet, not just on the field, but in the clubhouse, in the dugout, and at the dinner table. For a newcomer, that pressure is immense. It has been reported that Skubal arrived at Dodger Stadium with the kind of quiet nerves that even experienced players rarely admit to. He was not a rookie. He was not unproven. But stepping into a locker room filled with names like Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, and Shohei Ohtani carries a weight that statistics and scouting reports simply cannot prepare you for. According to those familiar with his early days with the team, Skubal kept mostly to himself during his first few hours inside the facility. He observed. He listened. He was careful not to overstep, not to assume, and not to misread the room. Every new player goes through this period of silent adjustment. Most veterans understand it. Most give the newcomer space. But Shohei Ohtani is not most veterans. It has been reported that shortly after the game ended that evening, Ohtani quietly approached several members of the team, coaches, players, staff, and extended a simple but unmistakable invitation. Dinner. That night. Hosted by Ohtani himself. This was not unusual. According to multiple sources within the organization, Ohtani has a well-known tradition of hosting team dinners, particularly when new players arrive or after significant moments in the season. But what sets these dinners apart from a standard team outing is the level of thoughtfulness Ohtani brings to every single detail. The restaurant had been selected carefully. The seating had been arranged deliberately. And according to those present, the gifts, the watches that would later draw significant attention, had been prepared well in advance. Not purchased hastily. Not ordered out of obligation. Prepared. Thoughtfully. With full awareness of who each person was. When Skubal walked through the door that evening, he reportedly stopped for a moment. Not because of the setting, though the setting was impressive. He stopped because of the atmosphere. According to eyewitnesses, the entire team was already gathered, relaxed, and laughing. The tension of the game had dissolved completely. And sitting at the center of all of it, calm and composed, was Ohtani. The story of the luxury watches spread quickly once it became public. And understandably so. Ohtani gifting his teammates and staff with high-end timepieces is the kind of gesture that immediately captures attention. It is generous. It is remarkable. And by any standard, it is extraordinary. But according to multiple sources who were present that evening, the watches were almost beside the point. What truly affected Skubal, what reportedly stayed with him long after the dinner ended, was something far quieter and far more personal. It has been reported that when Ohtani presented Skubal with his gift, he did not simply hand it over and move on. He paused. He looked directly at Skubal. And according to those present, he said something to him, privately, briefly, that acknowledged not just his arrival on the team, but his journey to get there. The specific words have not been confirmed by multiple sources. But what has been confirmed is the effect those words had. According to people close to the situation, Skubal was visibly moved. Not overwhelmed. Not emotional in a dramatic sense. But genuinely, quietly touched in the way that only happens when someone makes you feel truly seen, not as a roster addition, not as a utility player filling a need, but as a person. That, according to those familiar with Ohtani's approach, is entirely consistent with who he is behind the cameras and away from the public eye. Much has been written and said about Shohei Ohtani, the baseball player. The home runs. The pitching. The records. The MVP awards. The contract. The global icon status that follows him everywhere he goes. But according to multiple sources within the Dodgers organization, the version of Ohtani that his teammates see every single day is something the public rarely gets an accurate picture of. He is described, consistently and without exception, as someone who is deeply aware of the people around him. Not in a performative way. Not for the cameras or the headlines. But in the quiet, daily, almost invisible way that defines true leadership. It has been reported that Ohtani regularly arrives at the facility before most of his teammates. He is prepared. He is focused. But he is also observant. According to those familiar with his habits, he notices things. He notices when a teammate is struggling, not just in their batting average, but in their mood, their posture, the way they carry themselves through the clubhouse. And more often than not, he responds. Not with a grand gesture. With a word. A look. A moment. The dinner for Skubal was simply a larger expression of something Ohtani does in smaller ways every single day. According to multiple sources, Tariq Skubal spoke about that evening in the days that followed, not in a press conference, not in a formal interview, but in the kind of candid, unguarded conversations that happen between players when the cameras are off. What he reportedly said was this: he had expected a welcome. He had expected courtesy. He had even expected some degree of warmth, because the Dodgers have a reputation for a strong clubhouse culture. What he had not expected was to feel, on his very first night, that he already belonged. It has been reported that Skubal told teammates the evening felt nothing like a formal team event. It felt, according to his own words, like being welcomed into someone's home. And the person responsible for creating that feeling was Ohtani. It wasn't just a welcome party, Skubal reportedly said. And those 5 words, according to multiple sources, perfectly captured what every person in that room felt that night. The story of that dinner matters beyond the watches, beyond the gesture, and beyond the feel-good narrative of a star player being kind to a newcomer. It matters because it reveals something fundamental about the culture the Dodgers are building, and the role Ohtani plays in constructing it every single day. According to multiple sources within the organization, the Dodgers have spent years trying to create an environment where players feel connected to something larger than individual performance. Where the team's identity is not built purely on talent, because talent alone has never been enough to win championships, but on trust, communication, and a shared understanding of what it takes to win at the highest level. Ohtani, in this context, is not simply the best player on the roster. He is, according to those familiar with the internal dynamics of the clubhouse, one of the most important cultural anchors the team has. His consistency, his professionalism, and his genuine investment in the people around him set a tone that every other player feels. When Ohtani hosts a dinner, it is not a celebrity doing something charitable. It is a teammate saying, without words, that every person in this room matters. That belonging here is not conditional on performance. That the standard of excellence the Dodgers demand also comes with a standard of care that the organization takes equally seriously. For Skubal, experiencing that on his very first night was not a small thing. According to those close to him, it fundamentally shaped how he approached his early weeks with the team, how he prepared, how he communicated, how he saw his own role within the group. There will be many more chapters to the story of the 2025 Los Angeles Dodgers. More wins. More losses. More pressure. More moments that test the character of this roster when the stakes are at their highest. But according to multiple sources who were present that evening, the night Tariq Skubal sat down to dinner with Shohei Ohtani and his new teammates will remain one of the most quietly significant moments of his time with this franchise. Not because of the watch on his wrist. Not because of the restaurant, or the setting, or the gesture that made headlines. But because for the first time since signing with the Dodgers, Skubal reportedly felt something that no contract, no announcement, and no press conference could have given him. He felt like he was home. And the man responsible for making him feel that way said almost nothing at all. He simply sat at the head of the table, watched over everyone in the room, and made sure that not a single person felt like a stranger. That is Shohei Ohtani. Not the version the world sees on the highlight reel. The version his teammates see every single day.